Right, finished with these, and I've got to say they've turned out really well. Didn't take a huge amount of work to integrate that woofer, but yeah, it did take a little bit of doing, but the results are really good. I couldn't listen to them before because both woofers were really damaged. I have heard these before, but that was quite a long time ago. And I've got to say, using this 8-inch woofer from a Ditton 22, whilst there was a bit of integration work, it's turned out really well. I listened to them last night, probably 3 or 4 hours, and yeah, pretty taken with them. They're good. Nice dome mid-range, so mid-range is good. Very detailed. They do have a reasonable image to them. Certain vocal tracks, they don't disappear, but they present themselves well, and quite a big sound. The cabinet is very thin-walled, lossy, bit bloomy, but it's got that sort of 70s 80s sound to the bass. Certain tracks, I was listening to Axel F, they just loved it. So yeah, they were just quite nice to listen to. I wouldn't say they do anything spectacular, but they don't do anything bad, and they're just nice to listen to. So yeah, I think that woofer sits in there nicely. I think it looks much better than the original. It's going to last a lot longer. We've got a rubber suspension. These second-hand Ditton 22 woofers I had are in really good condition, and yeah, it's just worked out well. So I think what I'll quickly do is run through what I had to do with the crossover to get this working, because I'd recommend this if you've got a pair of these, and you've got the original woofers. The foam, like a lot of foam surrounds from this era, just break up. Yes, you can refoam them, but in the first place, that's a pretty lame woofer really. So this has worked well. So if you can get a pair of these, which you can pick up, I don't know, 50-60 quid for a pair, what you need to do to the crossover is not too involved. I would recommend recapping these anyway, because the old components are pretty dire. What I haven't done is done any capacitor upgrades on this, because it was quite important to keep their sound character really. Whilst we've obviously mucked around with the bass, it's certainly improved, but yeah, I didn't want to go down the line of putting polys in, making the thing probably a bit shouty, then having to revoice it to a degree. That's not what this little project was about. So yeah, all good. So I'll run through what I did with the crossover. Right, so as far as I can tell, this is the crossover design for the S80. So we've got our positive rail along the top here, our negative rail along the bottom. So we come in through this little trip switch. So if the speaker's overloaded, this kicks out and a little LED comes on. There's actually an LED and a resistor across here as well. Sorry, across here. So on our woofer circuit, we come through an iron core 2 millihenry inductor to our woofer, which runs down to ground, and then we have a 15 microfarad capacitor with a 2.2 ohm resistor down to ground. So second order low pass on the woofer. And then on our mid circuit here, a bit more complex, we've got a 10 ohm resistor and a 6.8 microfarad cap and a 4.7 ohm resistor. And these meet here. We carry on through a 33 microfarad capacitor, through a 0.15 millihenry inductor, and then we hit our mid-range with a 22 ohm resistor grounding out our positive. So kind of first order high and low pass. Just the kind of high pass part of it's a bit more complex here. We're shaping the roll off quite
quite a lot here. And then a simple first order roll off on the low pass, and then on our tweeter come in through a 3.9 ohm resistor, also a 6.8 microfarad capacitor, into a 3.3 ohm resistor, into a 6.8 microfarad cap, to our tweeter, and then an inductor down to ground, which is quite large actually, 1.5 millihenry. So pretty much a second order on the tweeter as well. Again, we're doing some shaping here. But yeah, that's kind of what it looks like. Right, hopefully you can all see this okay. Hopefully the camera's not strobing too much because of the light. So this is the original crossover. We had an 8 ohm woofer. We had, I'd say the mid and the tweeter are probably 8 ohm, maybe the tweeter 6. So my DC test was 7 ohms and 6 ohms. DC on the old original woofer was about 7 as well. So woofer circuit, originally we had a second order, so a 2 millihenry inductor, our woofer, and then we had a 15 microfarad cap with a 2.2 ohm resistor down to ground. So that's what we originally had. I've changed this. That's not a 15 anymore, that's a 12. And the reason for doing that is to just allow the woofer to gently roll a bit further into the mid, and that's worked well. On the mid-range circuit, what I had to do was reverse the polarity on this, so that's now connected the other way around. Whether this woofer is faster or slower than the other, I don't know, but that's probably the reason why I've had to reverse that. Same goes for the tweeter as well. If I reverse the mid, I have to do the same with the tweeter, otherwise I'll develop a big hole between the mid and the tweeter. So that's now out of phase as well, but that's not a problem. That's quite common. It's quite common to have the mid out of phase as well. The other thing I did was this 10 ohm resistor is now a 15. So we've got a cap here and a cap here, which kind of dictates how low the mid plays, and also its roll off. So I've adjusted that, and that's worked well, really well. So if oh, the other thing I did, this 3.9, I thought they were a teeny bit bright, so I've changed that to a 4.7. So if you've got a pair of these and you can get hold of a pair of Ditton 22 woofers, that's what you need to do. Oh, one last thing. I had to cluster up some decent resistors here to make 1 ohm, which you know, is not ideal on the woofer, but I've clustered these up to, what did I use, 4 ohm resistors, 11 watts each. So technically I've got 44 watts of continuous, you could put 44 watts of continuous power through those, and that's never going to happen. So yeah, 1 ohm resistor there, clustered up to make 1 ohm. 12 microfarad instead of a 15. That resistor there changes from a 10 to a 15, and that resistor there changes from a 3.9 to a 4.7. Works beautifully. Right, so that's the crossover done for one of them. We've got really good MOX resistors in the mid and tweeter circuit. There is one in the one ceramic in the tweeter circuit, but it's in shunt down to ground, so I'm not worried. Yeah, I'm not doing any form of upgrading really on this. It's quite important that I keep the character of this speaker. The client's very concerned about that you know, I maintain it, so I'm not going silly with this. So yeah, just new components. I'll check the others because some of those look pretty gnarly, and we'll see how far they are out. In order to make my woofer work, I've changed the value of this capacitor, changed the value of this resistor, yeah, just to integrate it better with the mid. Right, so I guess the other thing we want to know is how far out were these old components. I'm not worried about the resistors. some of these looked pretty poor. So yeah, let's just get rid of these really low powered nasty resistors. Glad we replaced those. Okay, right, just use my little peak tester for this. So R15s. .4, so that's not too bad. That one's 15 on the money. This should be a 3.8. Sorry, yeah, 6.8, sorry. 7.2. Another 6.8. 7.9. Okay, and this one here, another 6.8. 7.4. Another 6.8. 6.5. That's another 6.8, that's 7.4. Yet another 6.8. They like the 6.8s in this. 6.3. Alright, and then we got these 33s. These are on the mid circuit, so quite important. 37. So yeah, 3.3 would be 10%. So we are beyond that really. 3.8. Sorry, 38. Did I say 3 point something on that? What I meant to say was, yeah, 37. So more than 10% out. Yeah, so glad we replaced them.